Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive? Today, we're tackling something that's got everyone talking, AI pair programming.
Yeah, it's pretty much like having a super-powered coding buddy, right there in your terminal, ready to help you with anything, building stuff, debugging, even learning new tricks.
Kind of like magic almost, right? Having AI help you write code. We're going to be focusing on a specific tool they called Aider.
Aider, yeah. It's an AI pair programmer, and it's getting a ton of attention because it can really understand your code base and it can offer these really intelligent suggestions. And the cool part is it works right within your Git workflow.
So when we say Aider understands the code base, what does that even mean? Does it, like, read my mind or something?
Not mind reading, but pretty close. So it
Yeah.
uses something called a repository map to get like a big picture view of your whole project.
Okay.
And so you add the files that you're working on to what Aider calls a chat session, and then it uses this map to like understand how everything fits together, even if you haven't like added every single file to the session.
So it's like it can kind of see the forest and the trees.
Exactly. And this is something that a lot of developers have been worried about with like AI coding tools, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to have to like feed the AI their entire project just to get help with one little part.
Right.
But Aider gives you that context without like overwhelming you.
That makes a lot of sense. So what can Aider do? Can it actually create code from scratch?
It can. The source material we're looking at today shows some pretty cool examples. It shows Aider building like a Flask app from the ground up, modifying a JavaScript game, even completing a CSS exercise that involved like animations.
Whoa, okay.
Pretty cool stuff.
I mean, that's impressive, but I'm also like a little skeptical.
Yeah.
Is it just like spitting out generic code, or is it really understanding what I'm trying to do?
Right, and that's where the pair programming part comes in. You interact with Aider through like a conversational interface, so you can actually explain what you want to do just in plain English.
Okay.
And before it makes any changes, it'll show you what's called a diff. So it's a side-by-side comparison of the old code and the new code that it's suggesting.
Okay, so I'm in control. I get to decide what changes actually happen.
Absolutely, yeah. You're totally in the driver's seat.
Okay.
You can accept its suggestions, you can reject them, you can modify them, whatever you want. And then all the changes are committed to get with like clear messages, so you can always like track what's been done and you can revert back if you need to.
Okay, so Aider sounds pretty amazing, but I imagine it needs some pretty serious AI power under the hood, right?
For sure. It connects to these things called large language models or LLMs,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like the brains behind the operation. And in the source material, it highlights some of what it calls the best models for using Aider. So, things like GPT-4o, Claude 3.5 Sonnet, and DeepSeek Coder V2.
Okay, so those names sound familiar. Are those like the ones behind all those crazy AI demos we've been seeing?
Exactly. Like the ones that can write poems or compose music, really powerful stuff.
Okay.
But the interesting thing is, Aider's not limited to just those top-tier expensive models.
Yeah.
It also works with some free options like Google's Gemini 1.5 Pro and Llama 370B on Grok.
Oh, wow. So even someone like me who doesn't have a ton of money to spend can still experiment with this.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
But what about like privacy concerns?
Yeah,
Do I have to send all my code to like Google servers or something?
that's a good point. Aider actually has a solution for that too. You can connect it to local models so your code stays right on your own computer.
Oh, wow. So they've really thought of everything.
They've really tried to make it as user-friendly and accessible as possible.
Okay, so Aider can help me write code, debug errors. You said it can generate test cases, and it even adapts to like my preferred level of AI power and privacy.
Exactly. And it's all done within a familiar Git workflow.
Okay.
So it's really easy to integrate into your existing development process.
I'm really starting to see why everyone's so excited about this.
Yeah.
But I am curious, how does Aider handle really big, complex projects? Wouldn't it get bogged down with all that code?
That's where that repository map comes in again.
Oh, okay.
It helps Aider focus on just the relevant parts of your code base.
So it's not just like blindly processing every line of code.
Exactly. And you can actually help Aider out by using a .aiderignore file.
Oh.
It's kind of like a .jitignore file. It lets you exclude certain directories that you don't want Aider to look at.
So you can really fine-tune what Aider focuses on.
Exactly, yep. Especially helpful for those really massive projects.
This all sounds incredibly promising. But are there any limitations to what Aider can do?
So One thing is, right now, Aider can only work with one Git repository at a time. So if you're, juggling multiple projects, you'll have to switch between them.
Hmm. Is that like a technical limitation, or is that a deliberate design choice?
That's a great question. It could be a bit of both, honestly.
Yeah.
It's possible that, handling multiple repositories at the same time would just add, a lot of complexity.
Yeah.
Or maybe they just want to make sure that Aider really deeply understands each individual project
Yeah.
before they start expanding its scope.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So there's room for growth, but even with that limitation, I mean, it sounds like Aider can already do some pretty amazing things.
Oh, absolutely. And it's important to remember that Aider, like all AI tools, it's constantly evolving.
Yeah,
So what seems like a limitation today might be completely solved, by next week.
that's true. It feels like we're just at the beginning of what AI can do for coding.
Yeah.
But before we get too lost in the future, can you give us some real-world examples of how people are using Aider today?
Yeah.
I'm really curious to see it in action.
Yeah, for sure. So, the source material we have today has some really cool examples. There's one where Aider helped somebody build a Pong game, the classic Pong game,
Oh, yeah?
using Pig Game. And so they were using Aider to generate code for, drawing the paddles, handling the user input, even, the game logic.
So even for something as interactive and complex as a game,
Mhm.
Aider can be a useful partner.
It can. And the developer in this case study even said that Aider helped them learn, some new Pig Game tricks along the way.
Well, that's cool.
So it wasn't just about getting the code done faster.
Yeah.
It was about learning and improving their skills too.
I love that idea. An AI that not only helps you code,
Mm-hmm.
but also helps you become a better coder.
Yeah.
What other examples did you find?
So there was this other one where a developer was working on a JavaScript game, and they used Aider to help them refactor some of their code.
Refactoring.
Yeah.
Every developer's favorite.
Right. But Aider can actually make it way less painful.
Okay.
So in this case, the developer was able to use Aider to find parts of their code that could be simplified or made more consistent. And then Aider even helped them actually write the new improved code.
Okay, so Aider's not just about generating code from scratch then. It can also help you improve your existing code.
Yeah,
That's really cool, especially for bigger projects that have been around for a while.
definitely. And then we can't forget about documentation. Love it or hate it, it's a crucial part of software development.
Yeah.
And Aider can help with that too.
Wait, really? An AI that can write documentation for me.
Well, I mean, it's not quite that simple. You still have to give it some guidance, but it can definitely automate a lot of the boring parts.
Yeah.
So it can generate basic function descriptions from your code comments, or it can even create whole readme files based on your project structure.
Okay, that's still pretty impressive. Anything that can help me get out of writing documentation is a win in my book.
Yeah, for sure.
But these are all individual use cases, right?
Yeah.
What about teams? How can Aider help a group of developers who are all working on the same project?
That's a great question. So one of the big things for teams is that it can help with code consistency. You know how everyone has their own style and preferences when it comes to writing code?
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes it feels like we're speaking completely different languages,
Okay.
even though we're all using the same, programming language.
Exactly. But with Aider, you can set a shared coding style for the whole team and then use Aider to help enforce that style across the whole project.
Right.
And that can make the code base much easier to read and understand for everyone.
So it's like a silent coding guardian, making sure everyone's playing by the same rules.
Yeah, exactly. It's also really good for catching errors, early on. So imagine you're working on a feature and Aider spots a bug in your code before you even commit it.
Right.
That can save so much time and headache later on.
Absolutely. Catching bugs early it's so much easier than trying to fix them, once they've already caused a problem.
Totally. And because Aider is keeping track of all the changes that are being made to the code base, it can also help with debugging. So let's say a bug does pop up. With Aider, you can easily trace back through, the code's history, see exactly when and where the bug was introduced.
That's super helpful. No more spending hours going through commit logs trying to figure out who broke the build.
No.
It's like Aider is a detective for your code.
I like that analogy. And it's
Yeah.
not just about fixing bugs either. Aider can also help teams implement new features more efficiently. So let's say you're building a new user interface component. You could use Aider to generate the basic structure of the component, and then everyone on the team can kind of work on different parts of it at the same time.
Oh, cool. So it's like it promotes collaboration.
Exactly. No more bottlenecks.
Yeah.
Everyone can just jump in and get started. So Aider can really help teams work smarter, faster, and with fewer errors.
I think we should rename this episode like the Aider Fan Club or something because I'm really impressed with this tool.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful.
But I do have a question. You mentioned earlier that Aider's like constantly evolving.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think the future holds for like AI-assisted coding in general?
That's a great question.
Are we all just going to be sitting back, sipping lemonade while our AI overlords write all our code for us?
I mean, it's a fun thought, right? But I think it's going to be a little more complicated than that. AI is definitely going to keep playing a bigger and bigger role in software development, but I don't think it's going to replace human developers completely.
So no robot uprising in the coding world.
At least not anytime soon. I think the futures is going to be more about like collaboration
Okay.
between humans and AI. We're going to see these AI tools getting like more and more sophisticated, able to handle, really complex tasks. But I think human developers are still going to be really important for things like problem solving, creativity, understanding the user's needs.
Right, because AI can like follow instructions.
Yeah.
It can generate code, but it's humans who have to come up with like the vision, the big picture.
Exactly. It's like the difference between a musician and an AI that can generate music.
Yeah.
The AI can come up with some pretty impressive melodies, but it's the musician who brings, the emotion, the artistry, that human touch.
I like that. So the future of coding is like this symphony of human creativity and AI assistance all working together to create, really incredible software.
I love that. Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it.
And as the symphony is playing out, I'm curious to see like what new instruments, what new techniques we're going to discover.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the advancements you're most excited about?
So one area that I think is really interesting is like these AI models that are being developed that can understand not just the code itself, but the intent behind the code.
Oh.
So right now, tools like Aider are really good at helping us write code that does what we tell it to do.
Mm-hmm.
But what if we could have AI that understands like what we're trying to achieve, even if we don't know exactly how to say it in code?
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
It's like having an AI that can like translate your vague ideas into working software.
Exactly. And we are starting to see some hints of this kind of capability in like the latest AI research. There are like models being developed that can generate code from just like natural language descriptions. So you could literally just describe what you want your program to do in like plain English, and the AI would write the code for you.
That's pretty wild. I imagine there's still some challenges to overcome before
Yeah.
that becomes like a mainstream thing, right?
Oh, definitely. One of the biggest ones is like teaching AI to understand all those little nuances of human language, especially when you're talking about like technical concepts.
Yeah.
Because, we humans, we can be pretty ambiguous sometimes.
Yeah.
And AI has to be able to like navigate that ambiguity to really understand what we mean.
Right. And even if the AI can like get what we're trying to do, it still has to write code that's good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Code that's functional, but also like readable and maintainable and secure.
Exactly. And I think that's where, human developers are going to keep being really important. We'll need to be working alongside the AI, like guiding it, refining its output, and making sure that the code it generates is, up to our standards.
So it's not about replacing human developers. It's about like augmenting their abilities, giving them these new tools and superpowers to build even cooler stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think this whole collaboration, between humans and AI, it has the potential to really unlock a whole new level of creativity in software development.
I love that. I'm excited to see where all this goes. But as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to go back to something you said earlier about how important it is to be adaptable in this world that's constantly changing.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give to developers who are just starting to explore, the world of AI-assisted coding?
I would say just approach it with curiosity and a willingness to experiment.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to try out different tools, see what they can do, see how they fit into your workflow.
It's kind of like learning any new skill, right?
Exactly. You got to be willing to jump in and get your hands dirty. And don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Yeah.
That's how we all learn.
And as you're experimenting, don't forget to share what you've learned with other people,
Yeah.
because this whole community is still pretty new,
Yeah.
and we can all benefit from each other's experiences.
Absolutely. The more we all share, the faster this whole field can move forward.
Well said. Well, I want to thank you for joining me on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
It's been a really interesting conversation, and I'm leaving feeling, honestly, pretty optimistic about the future of coding.
Me too. I hope all of our listeners are feeling inspired to explore all the cool things that AI can do.
Yeah. Until next time, everyone, happy coding.